It's indeed a great privilege. Today we have got with us Professor Mahendra Lama, an economist, strategist and a great soul who is working tirelessly on various projects related to India's economic growth, India's strategic relationship, partnership in South Asia, Southeast Asia, ASEAN and of course with Far East and other places as well. And of course, he visited in recent past for 2 years China as well as a visiting professor. Hearty welcome, Professor Saab.
Thank you.
It's such a great pleasure that you are here today with us.
Thank you very much.
We wish to take on different areas of the Asian continent.
Sure.
And as Asia is becoming the economic hub, economic power, and a couple of developments are taking place in this region. So in your own order of priority, whatsoever you feel appropriate, you can take it on. We wish to discuss something on China. We want to discuss something on Southeast Asia. With Southeast Asia, we also want to discuss our northeast part of India. And at the same time, we are also very keen to know from you, being an expert, regarding our relations, future relations with Nepal, with Sri Lanka, with Maldives, Bhutan and other places as well. Choice is entirely yours, whatever sequence you want to start, whatever way you want to start, let's have it that way. Economic impact we want to take on the whole.
Sure. Thank you very much for, more importantly, for inviting me here. It was a lovely session with the students today.
They also enjoyed
Yes,
thoroughly.
I enjoyed my interactions with them.
Yes.
I think we should, India has a very interesting situation today as a country. First is what is happening within India, right? And what is happening in the region that surrounds India. And thirdly, what is happening in India and the global world,
Yes.
the larger world, right?
Yes.
So it's very interesting to see, first let's see India, within India, many things, because many people, many institutions have said that India is going to be a major economic power in the course of the next 30-40 years. And there are adequate indicators that we are moving towards that, right? For example, the way we have done our trade, the way we have done our manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, and
Services sector.
right? So I think there are adequate indicators, but I think at the same time we also know that this is not enough, right?
Much more to be done.
If we see what a country like Korea did, Singapore did, China, Japan, even some of the Latin American countries like Brazil, Argentina did, I think we are still not moving the way we should be moving.
So you talk about the pace?
Pace,
Okay.
yes. The pace, right? And the other thing within this is, the pace has to be such that it takes the entire country along with it. You can't say that South India and West India are doing well, East India and Northeast India are not doing well, North India is not doing well. So I think one of the ways forward for all of us is to really take the entire, galvanize, mobilize and really take the entire country together. And this is what has happened in many other countries. China, of course, very lately realized that what really happened in the coastal areas in the eastern part of China, including Shanghai, Fujian, all these provinces. They said that only these coastal regions developed, not the southwestern part of China, including Tibet, Sichuan, Chennai. Right? So they quickly concentrated. So that quick shift to underdeveloped geographies also happened almost 18 years back
Okay.
in China. In our case, we have not started. Northeast still remains a pocket which is a laggard in development.
Yeah. Which has tremendous potential.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So this is in the second thing is, I think in our country we really have to build institutions, right? Which would really care. The political will is fine, governmental policy is fine, but what is very important is how do you institutionalize them, what kind of institutions you have created, and which institutions will really carry them forward, right? We really have to strengthen our institutions. And third, of course, is we need something like a solid human resource base. You know about it, right? You have been working on this. Unless you create a very critical mass of human resources across the country, across the sectors, right, across the communities, it will be very difficult to really take it forward. So it is in the interest of the country that the geographies which do not have institutions of the top order, like say you have very good institutions in Bangalore, Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad. Such kind of institutions have to be replicated, created in institutions where you don't have. So like, let's say, for example, Patna, right? For example, UP, any in a place like Allahabad or Lucknow or Gorakhpur, you don't have such kind of institutions. So these are the three things.
Okay, institutions, when you talk about, you're referring to educational institutions?
No, all kinds of institutions.
All kinds of institutions.
Yes, scientific, professional,
Okay.
educational, technical, all kinds of institutions.
Does that involve the industrial part?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
And institutions.
Complete ecosystem.
Yes, both public and private.
Both public.
Now, where are the institutions that would devote time to do infrastructural projects,
Okay.
like roads, communications, transports, right?
Okay.
Waterways.
Okay. How do you look at the entire development which is taking place in China? If you could educate us a little bit, how China is working, what is the psyche of China, what is the development process or procedure or a strategy in China?
You see, if you see, China has had a very tough time. And as compared to us, they have suffered a lot. One of the very remarkable way of looking at China's progress is China really suffered and it hit the ground and again it was raised from the ground, like exactly what happened in Japan. But the incidences in China and Japan are different. In China, you had the cultural revolutions from 66 to 77, right? And that had almost ruined the country. There are books by Chang and Halliday which say that almost 7 to 8 million people died. 80 lakh people died in China during these 10 years. Large many institutions were demolished. Country was totally disoriented, right? So China picked up after the death of Mao Zedong. Leader like Deng Xiaoping really took it off, right? And that made a huge difference in China. Similarly, in case of Japan, after the Hiroshima, Nagasaki atom bomb droppings, right? That country was really ruined. It was really grounded and started taking off. So, but China did 2-3 things which was very remarkable after 1979 when Deng Xiaoping said. Deng Xiaoping started policies related to openness.
Okay.
Yes, you really open. What Gorbachev did in Russia, Soviet Union. They had a policy like glasnost and perestroika, that means openness and restructuring of the projects. Exactly in China, they started restructuring the entire process, opened economic, and 2-3 things really helped them. One was the non-residents Chinese investment in China. That itself became a huge contributing factor to China. Secondly, since the production, manufacturing, the ecology was much more better there. All the top world companies, particularly from Japan, like Sony, any Panasonic, national panels, they opened their shops in China. So they had a liberal laws, low wages, raw materials were available. So instead of producing any Japanese product in Japan, they started producing the same product in China.
Because economically it was more feasible, viable.
So today you will find Sony camera made in China, right? So actually it is Japanese.
Japanese, okay.
So and they started doing that. The second thing they did was they really started producing for trade, huge trade, and grades of the trade. They started producing for example, same set of textiles, one set of textiles for American market because they can absorb at a high cost. Then the second set for a market like Germany, France, third a market like India, such kind. So they had gradation and gradation. So
and that gave the economic prosperity and economic freedom. Okay.
And they gradually shifted to much stronger industries.
Okay.
Right? And when they shifted to heavy industries like say much more production with stainless steel and all, they started feeling that there are no raw materials in China.
Okay.
That's how they started going to Africa, Asian countries, they started going to Latin American countries, right? Basically to get the raw materials. Iron ore, bauxite, gas, oil.
That they got from the Latin America side.
Yes.
Okay.
The African countries and all. And which we missed. India could not do it. Still today also India is not able to do it. Right? So, and the third is in China, because of the very political system. They have one party, one government system. Because of this, they could really push things forward. Unlike ours. We have a democracy at the center and democratic units in provinces and all. So you have to really bring them together. You have a different political party in the center, other party in the states. So we had a mismatch, right? And very difficult. Whereas there, one political party, Communist Party of China, and government is the same. The party head is the same, and the government is also the same. The government head is also. It was really easy for them to push the project forward.
Okay. And how do you see way forward? I would say particularly if we think about services sector in China.
They are doing
manufacturing. You have mentioned. You have given a very bright picture. How about the services sector?
See, services sector also. I think Chinese are now gradually moving towards services sector, and in the services sector management. India has done pretty well, right? We have institutions, we have all the legal provisions, enabling laws in place to a large extent. So, in fact, some of the Indian service sector giants can think of going to China.
For example?
Like, say, for example, in the information technology related services.
Okay.
Right? Chinese would be badly needing some of the services like this.
You're talking about software or hardware?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Hospitality. Right? Chinese opened their tourism sector pretty late, whereas we have a huge tourism sector in our country.
But still they're getting more tourists than anybody else.
That's what. But as far as the service provisions are concerned, I think we are far ahead. Right, in terms of laws, in terms of regulatory mechanisms. So I think we should think on that line. In certain areas like pharmaceuticals, Chinese would not allow India because they know that Indian pharmaceuticals are much cheaper than Chinese. Right? So this is where we really have to negotiate with the Chinese.
Okay. Now, how about the education sector? Because that also we consider as a part of services sector. How do you overall see the education ecosystem of China?
You see, in education, I think, I would say, except the top 5-10 universities in China, including Beijing, right, Fudan, Shanghai, Sichuan, right? Except the top 10 institutions, 15 institutions in China, I think university education system is far more, and the college education system is far more comprehensive, far more efficient in India, I would feel.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, now Chinese have a large number of people who are graduated in other countries, including UK and USA and Canada, and all these are started coming back. But institutionally, I think the education system, the course programs, human resources we have in our country, we are much better. So I would feel Chinese standard would be slightly, relatively lower than Indian standard.
Is it so?
In many areas.
How about research?
Research, yes. That is an area where Chinese are far ahead of India. Research, R&D.
Okay.
Because of 2-3 things. One is the private sector in Chinese. Include, say for example, Oppo, Huawei, if you take any of these, they devote a lot of resources in R&D activities there.
Okay.
Then, of course, the government, all the public sector units, government devotions to science and technology. Whereas in our case, except 1 or 2 private sector, I don't think private sector is really interested in doing any R&D activities. Our R&D activities are totally driven by the government, one. Secondly, our contribution of funds in R&D in India is relatively much lower than what Chinese do.
Oh.
Right? And this is very clear from the way the Chinese get patents, the Chinese gets the intellectual property rights. You know, they are far ahead than India.
How about infrastructure development?
Well, infrastructure development, there is no match to China. Because they build infrastructure thinking what they require in next 50 years.
Yes.
And we build infrastructure depending upon what really happened yesterday and what we require today. So it is ours is a very, what you call it, very
short-sightedness.
Very short-sightedness and very incremental process. We move only this much, right? Say for example, when Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there, he brought this concept of golden quadrilateral highways, north, south, east, west, and that was in 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 14 years. Still, we have not been able to do. And the way Chinese do it, they have a time-bound program, a resource-bound program, and they have a strong standard, a very strong accountability. In our case, we do not know. Look at the projects in the northeast. It has some projects are under construction for last 20 years. Nobody is really bothered about it, right? Whereas in China, no, dot. This has to be done this, they have done this. And that is why I find the Chinese ways of constructions, Chinese ways of doing infrastructure projects are being replicated in even a country like Pakistan.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka.
Many other countries.
Right?
I recently visited Cambodia and I was in a position to see that a lot of infrastructure is coming up which is being constructed by Chinese and maybe some portion for Chinese, and once again, the entire development is taking place. What kind of a collaboration do you feel India and China can have in higher education?
See, India and China, it is in the, you see, you have a framework which we traditionally say that India and China are basically rivals. Some of us even say that China and India are great enemies.
But Is that a right perspective?
No, I don't think so.
Because today it is not going to be a conventional hate for each other.
Absolutely.
It's going to be basically the economic supremacy which has to be taken into consideration. You can't avoid that.
That is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is there are countries in the global world which would not like India and China to come together, right? Because way back, I think about 100 years back, China and India together had almost more than 50% of the global gross domestic product.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Today we are hardly 20%, 26%, right? So what is very critical today is let's see which are the areas of convergence where we converge, right? We only talk about that.
In education, if I focus on, how do you look at that?
It's a great area.
Okay.
Education is one area where China and India can really work together, right?
Could there be some joint research projects?
Oh yeah. Large
In
number.
education?
Education, we can even start from projects like our school education. There are a lot of things which India can learn from China and Chinese can learn from India, right? Then you are in the higher education, you have the technical education, you have the professional educations, then you have education related to highly top class research, right? Every area where we can do together. And there are institutions. And it's not that we have not started. Many institutions have already started working with the Chinese. I see Indian IITs, IIMs have got good relations with Chinese counterparts, right?
We would be focusing more on services sector because our chamber deals more with services. So I'm just trying to amplify over there, like faculty exchange, student exchange, research exchange, some joint programs, joint cultural programs, and something related to higher education, skills, capacity building, something related to that. How do you look at it?
You see, the two things which we have to learn from China is, China is a country which really promotes skills, right? Very consciously promotes skills. All kinds of skills, traditional, non-traditional, modern, highly technical. So they have created such kind of skills, capacity building projects across the country. Whereas in our country,
it's only in some pockets.
Yes, we don't really, and we don't have a culture of respecting skills, right? A small cottage industry, nobody patronizes, it dies down, right? That is, I have noticed in China, how to vertically, horizontally integrate the skill development, capacity building projects. The second thing I noticed in China is they are very focused, right? So for example, we always in India say that we are very good in traditional medicinal systems, like you have been doing in the Northeast. Northeast is famous for traditional medicinal systems.
Ayurveda.
But in China, every second shop in the market is a traditional medicinal system shop. You have an allopathic medicine here, chemist here, you have a traditional medicinal shop here, side by side. And I see large number of more people going to TMS, traditional medicinal systems shop than the allopathic. Tell me in India, where is
this kind of system exists?
Then, so that means they have made TMS as competitive, traditional medicine as competitive, as attractive and as efficient as any of the chemist shops there, allopathic shops there, right? And in that area there is a conscious policy. They bring the faith healers, traditional faith healers, they are dependent on nature, plants, biodiversity, and they bring it to the lab in the colleges, private labs, then they commercialize the product, then they give it to private sector, they give it into the global business. So in Chinese airports, one of the most attractive thing in all the Chinese airports is there's a huge shops of traditional medicine systems.
Okay.
right? That means there is the government is consciously promoting them. People are getting jobs, employment, right? All kinds of, and it goes down to the community when you talk about TMS, right? Whereas tell me, India, we have a Ayush, we have a ministry, but have you ever seen any? If you would like to really go for any Ayurvedic medicines, where do you go? Is it easily accessible? You really have to look for it.
Okay.
Right? So,
First you have to find a shop, then you find to an area.
yeah.
then
So
you find-
services sector, right? On health, you have a huge scope, right? On communications, you have a huge scope. On tourism, you have a huge scope. Higher education, you really have a scope, right? There will be large number of Chinese students who would like to come to India and study, right? With fellowship, without fellowship, without scholarships also. But we have not, our visa system is so restricted that we would not allow an ordinary Chinese to come so easily,
Okay.
right?
In the second part, we will go a little more deeper into the education. We will also go a little more deeper into the northeast part of India. And can we think of any institution or institutions in northeast part of India which is competent enough, capable enough, and have the competence and expertise related to getting Chinese students and Chinese faculty as a economic multiplier activity in the northeast part of India?